Winston Churchill, is widely celebrated for his leadership during the Second World War. He became a symbol of British defiance against German aggression. His speeches inspired a nation to stand firm and to continue the fight, no matter the cost. Churchill famously vowed that the British people and government would carry on the struggle to the very end. Thankfully, a full-scale German invasion never occurred, and the British Isles were spared from occupation. Within a few short years, however, it was British troops who were marching through Berlin. Churchill himself visited the devastated capital of the Nazi regime after the war. He toured the streets, now silent and empty, where the echoes of battle had long since faded. His visit to Hitler's bunker was a powerful testament to Allied victory. The scenes of destruction were haunting, yet they served as evidence of what had been accomplished. The city had suffered tremendously, but it now lay under the control of the victorious Allies. Churchill's personal presence there emphasized the significance of the moment and the triumph of resilience. It was an experience that underscored the gravity of war and the rewards of perseverance. Yet before this moment of triumph in World War II, Churchill's record in the First World War was far more complicated. His reputation suffered from a failure that would shadow him for much of his early career. During WWII, Churchill held the position of First Lord of the Admiralty, placing immense responsibility on his shoulders. He was charged with overseeing Britain's naval operations, a role critical to maintaining supply lines and projecting power across the seas. In 1915, Churchill proposed a bold plan to strike the Ottoman Empire, an ally of Germany. His hope was that by attacking the Ottomans, the Central Powers might be weakened or even forced into an armistice. He identified the Gallipoli Peninsula as the most strategic point of attack. The Dardanelles Strait, connecting the Aegean Sea to the Sea of Marmara, represented a gateway to Constantinople. Control of the strait could potentially remove the Ottomans from the war entirely. Churchill's decision was ambitious, but it was also fraught with risk. It required careful coordination of naval and ground forces under challenging conditions. The campaign would test the limits of logistics, strategy, and human endurance. The Allied landing force numbered more than 300,000 soldiers. It was a multinational force including troops from Britain, Australia, France, and New Zealand. The troops were eager, courageous, and determined, yet many were under-equipped and unprepared for the harsh realities of the campaign. Churchill had anticipated high casualties, acknowledging that the plan carried enormous risks. Despite this awareness, he pressed forward, convinced that the potential reward justified the cost. The strategy was to launch a combined naval and land assault, beginning with heavy bombardment from ships stationed in the Aegean Sea. The initial naval bombardment was intended to soften Ottoman defenses and clear the way for a landing. However, the bombardment achieved limited success. Ottoman artillery, strategically positioned along the coastline, quickly disrupted the operations. Minesweepers, tasked with clearing the waters of underwater explosives, were forced to retreat under heavy fire. As a result, 3 Allied ships struck mines and were destroyed. This setback delayed the landing and exposed weaknesses in the planning and execution of the campaign. The delay allowed the Ottoman forces to reinforce their positions and prepare for the coming attack. By the time the Allied forces landed, the defenders were well prepared and deeply entrenched. The soldiers faced difficult terrain, steep cliffs, and relentless resistance. The chaos that followed was immediate and intense, with confusion, fear, and violence dominating the battlefield. The Gallipoli Campaign stretched over 10 months, from April 1915 to January 1916. During this time, both sides suffered devastating losses. The Allied forces experienced over 150,000 casualties. The Ottoman defenders endured nearly as many, with some estimates exceeding 120,000. The landscape became scarred by trenches, shell craters, and fortifications. Every inch of ground was fiercely contested, and the soldiers faced the constant threat of artillery, gunfire, and disease. Medical services struggled to cope with the sheer scale of injuries. Field hospitals were overwhelmed, and many wounded soldiers suffered needlessly due to the lack of supplies and infrastructure. The conditions on the peninsula were brutal, with extreme heat, cold, and unsanitary conditions taking a heavy toll. Disease claimed thousands of lives, compounding the suffering caused by combat. Food and water shortages further weakened the soldiers, affecting morale and performance. Amidst the carnage, acts of courage and sacrifice were abundant. Yet the human cost of the campaign was staggering. The failure of the Gallipoli operation had profound consequences for Churchill. He was removed from his post as First Lord of the Admiralty. His political career suffered a significant setback, and he would hold no major appointments for much of the war. The campaign became a cautionary tale of ambition, and inadequate preparation. Historians have debated the causes of the failure, examining strategic errors, intelligence shortcomings, and the limitations of coordination between naval and ground forces. While Churchill's intentions were to achieve a decisive victory, the execution fell short. The lessons of Gallipoli would resonate throughout his life, informing his later leadership decisions. Churchill himself reflected on the experience, acknowledging both the ambition and the flaws inherent in the plan. He learned the importance of adaptability, thorough planning, and the human dimensions of warfare. Despite the failure at Gallipoli, Churchill's legacy in World War I is not solely defined by this episode. He was instrumental in modernizing the Royal Navy and advocating for technological innovation. Churchill's vision included the integration of new weaponry, improved communication systems, and the development of naval aviation. His contributions to naval strategy and policy had a lasting impact on British military capabilities. Moreover, the lessons learned at Gallipoli informed Allied planning in subsequent conflicts. The campaign highlighted the need for comprehensive intelligence, logistical coordination, and flexibility in military operations. These lessons would be applied in future campaigns during both World Wars, shaping British strategy and doctrine. The human dimension of Gallipoli is equally significant. Soldiers endured unimaginable hardships, facing death, injury, and psychological strain on a daily basis. Letters and diaries from participants provide a vivid account of the experience. Troops wrote of fear, exhaustion, and the constant presence of danger. They also recorded moments of bravery, solidarity, and camaraderie that helped them endure the relentless challenges. The campaign fostered a sense of national identity and collective memory, particularly for Australian and New Zealand forces, known as ANZ. The landing at Gallipoli became a defining moment in the national consciousness of these countries. ANZ Day continues to be commemorated annually, honoring those who fought and those who fell during the campaign. The sacrifices of the soldiers shaped the narrative of courage, endurance, and resilience that has endured for more than a century. Churchill's role in Gallipoli remains a subject of historical scrutiny. Scholars have examined the strategic calculations, political pressures, and personal ambitions that influenced his decisions. Some argue that his vision was ahead of its time, while others contend that the execution was reckless and poorly planned. The campaign demonstrates the complexity of leadership in wartime, where bold initiatives can yield both opportunity and disaster. Churchill's later achievements in World War II often overshadow his earlier failures. Yet understanding the Gallipoli campaign provides a more nuanced view of his character, revealing both ambition and fallibility. It also underscores the broader challenges faced by leaders attempting to navigate the uncertainties of global conflict. The geography of the Gallipoli Peninsula itself played a critical role in the outcome. Steep ridges, narrow beaches, and rocky cliffs made amphibious landings extraordinarily difficult. Ottoman forces capitalized on these natural advantages, fortifying positions and preparing for incoming troops. Allied planners underestimated the difficulty of terrain and the readiness of the defenders. These miscalculations contributed directly to the high casualty rate and the prolonged stalemate. The logistical challenges of supplying troops under fire further exacerbated the situation. Ships had to navigate narrow straits while avoiding mines and artillery fire. Supplies were frequently delayed or lost, forcing soldiers to endure shortages of food, water, and medical care. The physical environment, combined with tactical errors, created a scenario that few commanders could overcome successfully. The naval component of the campaign also revealed significant vulnerabilities. Allied ships faced heavily mined waters, which led to the loss of multiple vessels. Ottoman artillery targeted the fleet with remarkable accuracy, The inability to secure the Dardanelles by sea delayed the entire operation and forced reliance on ground assaults. The coordination between Navy and Army proved difficult, highlighting gaps in command structure and planning. These naval setbacks were pivotal in the ultimate failure of the campaign. Churchill's vision of a swift, decisive victory was undermined by unforeseen obstacles and the resilience of the Ottoman defenders. Despite technological superiority, the Allies struggled to translate naval power into operational success on the ground. This interplay between ambition and reality is a recurring theme in military history, exemplified by the Gallipoli Campaign. The political repercussions of Gallipoli were significant in Britain. Churchill faced public criticism and political isolation. The loss of life, combined with the perception of mismanagement, fueled opposition to his leadership. He resigned from the Admiralty and spent much of the remainder of the war away from positions of major authority. The episode serves as a reminder that leadership carries both rewards and consequences. Decisions made in the pursuit of strategic objectives can have long-lasting impacts on careers, public perception, and national morale. Churchill's resilience in the face of criticism, however, foreshadowed the steadfastness he would display during World War II. His ability to learn from mistakes and adapt to changing circumstances was a hallmark of his later statesmanship. The Gallipoli Campaign is remembered not only for its strategic lessons but also for the personal stories of those involved. Letters, diaries, and memoirs reveal the human dimension of warfare. Soldiers described fear, courage, and the bonds formed in the face of adversity. Medical personnel recounted the challenges of treating casualties under extreme conditions. Families at home endured anxiety and grief as news of the campaign's progress and casualties reached them. The campaign left an enduring legacy, shaping national narratives in multiple countries and contributing to the collective memory of World War I. Gallipoli remains a symbol of both the heroism and the tragedy of war, illustrating the cost of ambitious military campaigns. It also highlights the interplay between leadership, strategy, and human endurance in determining the outcome of conflict. Churchill's experience at Gallipoli offers lessons that extend beyond military history. It underscores the importance of preparation, intelligence, and flexibility in decision-making. It illustrates how ambition must be tempered by realistic assessment of risks and resources. It demonstrates the profound impact of environment, logistics, and human resilience on the success of operations. Finally, it provides insight into the development of one of history's most influential leaders. Churchill's later triumphs in World War II were informed by the failures and lessons of World War I. The Gallipoli Campaign, though disastrous, contributed to shaping his strategic thinking, political judgment, and leadership style. Understanding Gallipoli allows for a deeper appreciation of both Churchill's career and the broader context of World War I. The campaign was a microcosm of the challenges faced by all combatants in the conflict. It involved complex coordination, multinational forces, and high-stakes objectives. It demonstrated the devastating human cost of modern warfare and the difficulty of achieving decisive results. The sacrifices of soldiers, the miscalculations of planners, and the resilience of both attackers and defenders are woven into the historical record. Gallipoli remains a powerful example of the intersection of strategy, leadership, and human endurance. It provides enduring lessons for historians, military leaders, and anyone seeking to understand the realities of war